Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we're going to be talking about Rob Reiner's anti-Christian nationalist movie that he has coming out next year. Now, Rob Reiner is best known for being the punching bag in an episode of South Park because of his rabid anti-smoking activism, but he's also a flaming liberal in other areas. So this is a well-known issue going back to the year, mid 90s. After he made A Few Good Men, of course, his best work. And then he also made This Is Spinal Tap, dialing things up to 11. And we dial the Christian nationalist derangement syndrome up to 11 with his trailer against Christian nationalism in a documentary that's called God and Country. So we're going to talk about this trailer. I've already talked about it a little bit on John Harris's podcast, but we have some more developing stories on this trailer, and that is Phil Vischer has been caught lying about it, or he's caught in a lie about it. We're going to talk about that story. But first, I want to let you know, Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering and commentary ministry. You can support our work over at evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. That is linked in the description below. But the least you can do is like this video, subscribe to the channel or podcast if you are new. So first up, we're going to watch the trailer to this documentary, which has the background of, America in it. And you just love to hear that, except the message is very anti-American. And very anti-Christian. So, here we go.
America and Christianity are like baseball and apple pie, and we celebrate them together.
I was 16, 17 years old when I became a Christian.
I'm an evangelical minister.
I've been a Christian my whole life.
I'm a Christian nationalist. I have nothing to be ashamed of because that's what most Americans are.
Is Christian nationalism Christian? No, it isn't.
We should be blazing forth as a countercultural example, and instead, we're leading the charge of malice and division.
Christian nationalism uses Christianity as a means to an end, that end being some form of authoritarianism.
Being a Christian is about the values of inclusion. Christian nationalism is certainly not based on the values of the gospel.
God wants America to be saved.
They're told over and over and over again that you're in danger.
You need to fight if you don't want to lose your country.
We are in a civil war between good and evil.
This is not a movement about Christian values. This is about Christian power.
What happens to the people who don't believe this stuff?
We are on the precipice.
God is on our side!
We're taking our nation back!
The thing that keeps me up at night is that we lose democracy.
Does that seem possible?
Yes.
Christianity at its best is committed to love and truth and justice. If we do this right, what a country we will be.
So that is the trailer, and you got some cringe off the bat. Christianity is about inclusion. What? And then you're like, these are the positive examples of Christianity. It's, MLK, who was not a Christian, not remotely Christian. So you see a lot of that, and a lot of what they're going after is people who are not liberal in their political views. That's really what this is about. And, people who are liberal in their political views are also liberal in their theological views. That's like 100% of the time. You don't find that many exceptions, except maybe some people that have internalized, theological liberalism from bad traditions, but are politically conservative. You see maybe some examples like that But you even see a lot of people in conservative circles that are theologically liberal, and it shows in a lot of cases. So you saw a lot of big names in that trailer. Let's do a quick deep dive on some of these big names. Just a quick rundown. We do have a list of the big ones, which include Phil Vischer, you saw him at the beginning, Jamar Tisby, Rob Schenck, Kristen Dumez, Russell Moore, David French, William Barber II, and Sky Jetheni. There's even more where that came from. We have Anthea Butler, who's seriously liberal, Andrew Whitehead, more liberal in the Southern Baptist circles. We got a few other people that we've kind of talked about in passing before. Like some of these people, I believe, were at the Texas Tribune thing. Sister Simone Campbell was a person who talked about Christianity being, I believe she was the one who said that it was about inclusion. That's, I guess Vatican II really affected her views on that. But you see a lot of the same usual faces here, and I would call these people whores because they are sellouts. And that's really what they're doing here, is they are working with an atheist, Rob Reiner, who's an atheist Jew. They are working with an atheist Jew to attack Christians and Christianity. So you hate to see that. And that's what whores do. Now, Dan Darling probably wishes he got the call, but he did not get the call because I guess he didn't put in the work. So, with that said, this is blown up a lot. The people who are in this trailer have definitely had some questions to answer, and Phil Vischer is always one for putting his foot in his mouth and just getting wrecked on social media, and he definitely brings it here, and he denies knowing Rob Reiner's involvement with the anti-Christian nationalist film, because obviously it looks bad to partner with an atheist to attack Christians, but that is what Phil Vischer has done. So the fallout of the God and Country film being put out by Rob Reiner has led to some of the multitude of Christian sellouts, or Big Eva sellouts, to say, not Christians, intended in the film intended to attack Christians for being politically involved, to tout and defend their involvement. Phil Vischer, the VeggieTales guy and co-host of the Holy Post podcast, defended his association with the Jewish atheist Rob Reiner's project by stating that he had no knowledge that Rob Reiner is connected to the film in any meaningful way. So Phil Vischer tweeted this out, and this is like on Friday. Important note, Rob Reiner didn't make the film, didn't talk to anyone who was in it, and only came on as an EP, which is executive producer. Dan Partland made the film. And he follows this up later by saying, my point being the original post was misleading. Rob Reiner didn't make the film, isn't releasing the film, and wasn't involved in getting anyone to appear in the film. Now, this is a lie. An executive producer of a film has a wide swath of possible roles to play. Phil Vischer is suggesting here that Rob Reiner was brought on as an executive producer to market the film's theatrical release. This is easily debunked, as Colin Smothers clearly showed. Now, Colin Smothers is SBC, one of the good guys, I would say. According to IMDb, in 2022, Partland was tapped by Academy Award-winning director/producer Rob Reiner, to direct a feature documentary about the current rise of Christian nationalism in the United States. Joining forces with the renowned New York Times columnist Catherine Stewart, the film God and Country goes deep into the history of American Christianity and its role in our civic and cultural identity. The film unpacks the drift of evangelicalism from a religious to a largely political movement, and its centrality to the January 6th so-called insurrection. Now, obviously, this is a propaganda film. The fact that they're talking about J6 so much is a clear indication that this is not about the current movement of Christian nationalism. It is about a perceived movement of Christian nationalism. Whether there's overlaps between their fantasy and a reality, that will remain to be seen. The idea that professing Christians blindly took part in Rob Reiner's movie, not knowing his extensive involvement. So it's also worth noting that Rob Reiner was an originator of this project, as reported in May 2022. Now, in May 2022, it was about the power worshippers. That was kind of the working title of this film, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the idea that professing Christians blindly took part in Rob Reiner's movie, not knowing his extensive involvement in the film that he funded, is hard to believe. Rob Reiner was able to recruit the usual Big Eva whores for this project, and the no questions asked mentality of that business is Phil Vischer's only defense for his oblivious incredulity. So, that is my hot take on that one. Because whores don't ask where the money comes from. They don't ask. It's not their job to ask questions. It's their job to put out. So, there is one last thing we want to talk about, and that is Catherine Stewart, author of The Power Worshippers, which Rob Reiner's documentary against Christian nationalism is based on. This is William Wolf pointing this out in a very lengthy tweet. We're not going to read all of it, but I do want to highlight some important things here. Is based on. So it's based on a book called The Power Worshippers. And Catherine Stewart admits she doesn't even know Christian theology in her book. So that's a huge deal. She doesn't know Christian theology, so how is she supposed to know whether something is biblical or not? So this is an excerpt from page 24, cited by William Wolf. In an interesting admission of disinterest at best and ignorance at worst, Stewart acknowledges that she will leave it for the theologians to decide whether their views are consistent with Christian teachings. Well then, how are you going to determine who's worshiping power, whether their views are orthodox or in line with historic Christianity? That just makes your entire book pointless. So, another point, and this also goes back to Kristen Dumas, another person in this documentary, a main feature. She's the author of the book Jesus and John Wayne. And, the same message of equating pro-life positions, opposition to homosexual marriage, and support for biblical views on gender roles and marriage with a dangerous and destructive Christian nationalism runs throughout the entirety of Kristen Dumas's recent critique of white evangelicalism and militant masculinity. In her book, Jesus and John Wayne, Dumas argues that Christian nationalism is linked to opposition to gay rights, that's based, opposition to gun control, that's also based, and traditionalist gender ideology, that's pretty based. A little further into her book, when critiquing Billy Graham's message that the stability of the home was key to both morality and security, Dumas cast Graham's teachings as a patriarchal interpretation, which reflected the more reactionary tendencies of early 20th century fundamentalism. So, yeah, Kristen Dumas is, a historical fiction writer. She's not good at historical fiction, but she's not good at history in general. And again, there's no Christian basis for supporting gun control or gay rights, or feminism. But, some people want to claim Jesus was the first feminist like they've never read the Bible. So, or they just want to read modern feminism into the Bible, and that's stupid too. So, with that said, that's a big deal going on right now. I'm sure this is going to provide a slew of content to come out in the future if and when we want to actually see this movie play out. But anyway, until then, have a blessed day, and we will catch you on the next one.